And we are here again for another informative, exciting episode of Homefront. My name is Rome and I am joined on set by JP. And we have with us Professor Michelle Monteil, who was a star last season as our first professor on set. Welcome, Prof.
Well, thank you very much for having me back.
Yes, yeah. Everybody wanted to know, this is the immunologist doctor?
Yeah,
This is the one, she's the vaccine doctor?
Yeah, she's the vaccine
She's now
doctor.
Trinidad and Tobago's very own superstar vaccine doctor.
Vaccinator.
The vaccinator.
Yeah,
So,
I like
Prof,
that.
on the entire season, the narrative is really that we're not forcing the vaccine on people who may be a bit hesitant, because we realize we have an anti-vaxxer group, we have a vaccine hesitant group, and then we have a group of people who believe in the vaccine and they have took it. And to the vaccine hesitant group is that a lot of them are hesitant because they lack information.
Sure.
And they are not sure how to go about going and get their research, which sites to go on.
Information or the correct information.
The correct
Yeah,
information.
yeah.
Because
they gain lots of
they
information.
get information. People
Yeah.
told me they get information. When I asked them, I said, so where you get that from?
Uh-huh.
They say, well, they have WhatsApp message. They get it from
Yep.
YouTube.
Yep.
They get it from Facebook.
Exactly.
So we decided,
The
well,
neighbor, cousin, dog, son.
Nicki Minaj.
Nicki Minaj.
That was the best. Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
said, you know what, on Homefront, instead of you all going and do all this research, we are going to bring the research to you
Sure.
and kind of debunk some of these
Sure.
myths, because we heard a lot of different
Sure,
myths,
yeah,
right?
definitely.
So I'm going to start off with one of the myths that we have been hearing, is that, because we asked the group of the vaccine hesitant what questions they would have had for you,
Sure.
and they sent in a couple of questions. So the first one we would start with today is, the myth is that if you get the vaccine, you're going to die.
Well, if anything, the data right now shows that if you are unvaccinated, you're 12 times more likely to die than those who are vaccinated. So those are the facts, and that's even true here in Trinidad. What I would say is I understand why people might have got that myth. Because what happened was that you go on YouTube and you see this graph, which is supposed to have come from the VAERS. The VAERS stands for the Vaccine Adverse Event Registration System, which the CDC, the American organization that monitors vaccine adverse reactions and other things and infections, that they had put out this graph. And when you look at this graph, you see that for 2021, that the number of deaths and hospitalizations seems to go up exponentially.
Right.
What people do not understand is that as a part of the emergency use authorization, which all of the vaccines got when they were rolled out, the Pfizer was rolled out in December, was that it's required that everyone who dies who has been vaccinated, whether it was 1 week or a month before or 3 months before, that they must be reported to CDC. All right? Whether or not the doctors think that the death is related to the vaccine.
Right.
And the reason for this is because the CDC has its own sleuths or detectives, public health detectives, who investigate each of those deaths
To make sure.
And they have a system, so they begin to know whether it is likely or not that that death was related to the vaccine.
Yeah.
So doctors have to report every death in everyone who's been vaccinated. So that's why you see this curve go all the way up. But it's not cause and effect, you see?
Right.
It doesn't mean because a death has been now reported to CDC and the person has been vaccinated, that's when it's way of collecting information, and the detectives, the public health detectives of CDC have to go and investigate.
But what's the likelihood? Let's say somebody who is vaccine hesitant and thinking, well, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I hear these things. I don't know about this virus. I'm not a doctor, but it seems as though I hear the neighbor down the road get the vaccine and they died. What is the likelihood of me taking the vaccine as somebody who's not vaccinated and dying?
Well, seemingly very, 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 very small, you know.
Right.
I mean, the reality is that we now have had something like over almost 45% of the world's population with at least one dose of vaccination, of a vaccine, all right? Here in Trinidad, we have 43% of people who have had probably fully vaccinated.
Fully vaccinated.
I mean, so if there have been deaths associated with vaccines, then they are minuscule, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We certainly are aware that you can have severe reactions in a minority of people. We know, for example, with the J&J that in 12 million doses, they found 100 cases of what is called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a significant neurological problem, all right? The majority of those survived, but it is true to say that there were some deaths.
So you would think the reason that Rome got vaccinated was to go back and sing parang, to have a great Trini Christmas, to be on the road carnival Monday and Tuesday having a fun time. But the reason why I got vaccinated was for my family. I have a bigger sister who has lupus, and her immune system is weaker than the average person. So myself and my entire family, we went out there and got vaccinated to protect her. She herself did it with the advice from her doctors. So let's do our part and vaccinate TNT.
That is in 12 million doses, all right?
So in 12 million doses, you have 100. So you're looking
100,
at-
and the majority of them, you're probably
10
less.
to 1 million on average, yeah.
Okay, we know about the clotting story, all right? What then happened was that after the UK decided not to provide the AstraZeneca to people under the age of 45 as a first choice, you could have if you wanted, they have hardly seen any clots, all right?
Sure.
So what people have to understand is that vaccines of all medications or interventions that are used medically are the
Everything?
most
Yeah.
monitored of all kinds of interventions or drugs that go into people, because vaccines are given to healthy people. And that's why you have these systems of tracking, you know, and that's why you keep hearing all this information, because we're tracking all the time.
Right,
But,
yeah.
but Prof, talking about that is that the other popular one is
If you go there, Rome, just to add to that, right? So, Prof, basically, if you have lots of persons getting vaccinated and people dying anyway, there must be a temporal association.
Yeah.
It must be,
Yeah.
but not causative.
Yes.
So it must be where if I was going to die tomorrow anyway,
Yes.
Rome, and everybody was just taking the vaccine. I got my vaccine yesterday.
Yes.
The thing is that there must be this temporary connection there where they'll say, you get it, but I was going to die anyway.
Right.
I was going to have my heart
And they would
attack
blame
or the stroke. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you know, after Nicki Minaj's confession,
Friend,
cousin, I came up with my own story to explain that. So can I say?
Uh-huh.
Yes, please, let me hear. So let's
Please
suppose
tell us, Prof.
a young man
Hold on.
has
Drum roll, man,
drum
Prof.
roll.
Yeah,
So a young man gets his vaccine on the Saturday, and on the Tuesday he has testicular swelling of his testes. He would say, "Oh my God, this is the first time. It must be due to the vaccine."
Yeah.
Right.
He has forgotten that 2.5 weeks before, maybe he was doing something he shouldn't have been doing,
Right.
Sure.
and that the real case is that he has a sexually transmitted infection
Right, sure.
that we really need to investigate. But he will blame it on the vaccine
Yeah.
because that was 2 days before or
Yes,
3
of
days
course, yeah.
before, rather than the event that really has led to this.
Of course,
You
yeah.
see, so what I'm saying is that very often people put things to follow up with your point. They see the temporal association, the timing is close to the vaccine, but something else has been happening a long time before,
Right,
you know,
right.
and you don't know what has been happening. People might have been getting chest pain, they
Yeah.
put it off,
And
you know,
you blame it on,
and that's right.
on the
That's
vaccine. So the other one is, and this one falls in my garden,
Right.
because a lot of people would say, if I could still get COVID-19 if I'm fully vaccinated, then why get the vaccine? Because I am fully vaccinated,
boy.
and I contracted COVID-19. So a lot of people would say, but you see,
did,
Rome, I
you
tell
did.
you,
Yeah.
that vaccine is working, look, you get COVID, and you had the vaccine.
Well, now you have super immunity. You good to go, boy. You can play carnival next year. Okay, so let me explain some things about that. The vaccines are very good. All the vaccines we have are very good at preventing severe infection and death, all right? They are less good at preventing infection, okay? We do know, however, that if you are unvaccinated, you are 6 to 8 times more likely to get the infection than if you're vaccinated.
Right.
So breakthrough infections can occur. We do know that the frequency with which breakthrough infections occur range from anything from 1 in 100 vaccinated people to 1 in 5,000 vaccinated people. But you out in the street with the 5,000.
Yeah, bro. I wouldn't
so
say where you were.
yeah, you got your vaccine.
Yeah.
But what I am sure you did was that when you got the infection, it was quite mild.
It was mild. It was
Exactly.
mild. I would give my testimony. It was I was probably I got a few symptoms for about 2 or 3 days, and then I was good. I wasn't even severe.
Right, right. So that is precisely what the vaccine also does. Having been vaccinated, that you actually are more likely to have mild infection. People who have comorbidities are more likely to still get moderate, perhaps even severe. Okay, we do know we can have deaths in people who have been vaccinated. We know here in Trinidad that it is probably 12-fold less, just like in America, all right, the deaths in vaccinated versus those who are unvaccinated. And most of those who die who are vaccinated have other problems, other comorbidities that are impacting. For example, Colin Powell, who everybody might have heard of. Colin Powell was fully vaccinated and died. But Colin Powell had multiple myeloma. Multiple myeloma is a serious cancer that suppresses your immune system, so that the vaccines were not as efficacious in him as if he didn't have it. In fact, I spoke with a young hematologist who told me that they have found that the efficacy of Pfizer, which is normally about 95%, in someone with multiple myeloma is about 7%.
Right.
Wow.
So
they're really.
So in a nutshell, it helps you. It helps to prevent you from getting seriously ill, ending up in the hospital, or dying.
Absolutely.
But you can still get the COVID-19 infection, but less so than if you're unvaccinated.
Right.
So wait a minute, make sure you all know vaccination does not prevent you from getting the COVID-19 infection, but it's a less of a chance. Yes, right.
I just want to say, infection with COVID-19 does not stop you from getting reinfected.
That's true.
People don't realize that as well. So when you get a vaccine, you're really getting a part of the virus, right? That's what you're getting in some way or the other. It's educating your immune system to identify that. But we do know that even if you get full-blown COVID-19, you can get it again.
Well, before you continue with that, because I want to get the time frame of immunity. So we're going to jump across to our Mindfulness Minute right now, where we breathe in the positivity, breathe out the negativity. And when we come back, Prof is going to debunk some more of these myths.
Hello and welcome to our Mindful Moment. Today I want to talk to you about mindfulness of the body. We can use our bodies as an anchor to help us really focus on being fully present here and now. An anchor, like we know with boats, helps keep us grounded and keeps us from drifting. The way that we hold our body sends a powerful message to our brains about our senses and our full awareness. So I'd like to invite you in this moment to get into a mindful body, which looks like a straight spine, not ramrod, just straight. Just try and get anything out of your hands. Free them up if you can. If it's possible, have your feet flat on the floor. You want to free anything out of your immediate space. And just spend a minute or two just being aware of what that feels like, how differently that feels when you change your body position. Remember, our bodies can be a powerful tool to keep us anchored in the moment, and reminds us to be mindful and be fully present here and now. Together, let's take a deep breath in and out. Good job. And remember to be here now.
It's Rome, and we are here. We're chilling with the boys. We're liming with the kids. We're doing this all for the PED CARES Foundation. So we need you at home watching us to go donate. Head over to the pedcares.org and send that donation, whether it's via credit card, direct transfer, because we want to make sure that the kids of our pediatric emergency department get the best possible care that they can get, because we need to take care of the next generation. The future lies with the kids. You all ready? On three, we go and say yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yay! Yay! The PED CARES Foundation. So we're hoping that you are more relaxed after our mindfulness moment. And now we're jumping back inside our myths. So we were talking about getting vaccinated versus getting COVID-19. So in terms of immunity, some people would say, well, if I had COVID before, I don't need to get the vaccine again. What would you say is better in terms of immunity?
Right.
Getting COVID or getting the vaccine?
Okay. I would say actually a combination. But let me explain myself.
Which
Let me
one?
explain myself. Let me explain
Oh,
myself.
you're the man, you're the man, you're the man.
Let me explain myself. What we do know is that of the people who have been infected with COVID-19, that about 1 in 5 really do not make good immune responses.
Right.
And we are aware that if you've had COVID-19, you could get COVID-19 again. We
right.
do know that people who have had COVID-19 and make good responses, a year out, they still have good responses, okay? But there's that variation over in terms of responses. And we don't know who are the 1 in 5 who have not made responses. So that's why it's recommended, well, take a vaccine, all right?
Sure.
Because you will boost, okay? So as I said, you're Superman. You had your vaccine and you get your infection, you're good to go for carnival next week.
Right. So you're advising someone who has contracted the virus
Yes.
after the time period, which I think was what, 3 months?
3
right,
months.
to still go on
Oh
and
yeah,
get,
absolutely,
and get the
absolutely.
vaccine. And then there are the people who are saying, well, okay, they rather take the risk of getting COVID versus
Again?
taking it, not getting it again, just
Right.
general, like if they
Right.
never had
Yeah.
COVID before,
Right.
if they get COVID, they
Yeah.
think that, because you know long ago they used to
Yep.
have these chicken pox
Yeah.
parties
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the children,
yeah,
so
yeah.
they prefer if they get COVID
Yeah.
versus go and get the vaccine.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
You can still die from chicken pox, but that is incredibly rare.
Mm-hmm.
you have a better chance of dying from COVID.
Right.
But, so if that is your preferred, there are a lot of problems with that thinking. One is you really don't know how you're going to react to the virus. That's the bottom line. Sure, there are a lot of factors that might work in your favor if you're younger, if you're in good health, things like that. But the reality is that even young people can get very severe COVID. We know this, okay? So you could come down with an infection that is quite significant. You might not die, but you might still end up in hospital or on oxygen or be very sick or have long COVID. A lot of people are not factoring the long COVID. We know that 25 to 30% of people who get COVID get long COVID.
Yeah.
We have stories of people who are year after, months after, cannot work because they cannot concentrate.
Cognitive,
Yes, that's right.
It's declining. I think they feel it's a cloudy kind of thing. I think it's the
fog.
The fog, yeah.
Yes,
When they have cognitive
COVID
fog,
fog,
so you can't really think. As Prof is saying, you can't move as well, so you're breathless all the time.
Yes.
So she's right about that. Then we forget about that part.
That's right. So we're constantly thinking about, okay, I won't die. Okay, maybe not. But the reality is that you could have a lot of impairment.
Yeah.
And that follows even mild COVID. You see? And they say as many as 25 to 30% of people are continuing. So shortness of breath, you can't go and walk around the savannah. If you did that, you're definitely not going up Chancellor.
Yeah.
You have a problem concentrating. You've lost your sense of smell and taste. Food is like eating cardboard, things like that. Those are not.
So then the risk is much greater with trying to build immunity naturally by getting COVID versus taking a vaccine.
Absolutely, that's exactly it. Everything here is risk-benefit.
Yeah.
Everything is risk-benefit. So you have to think about these things, And also, too, if you get an infection, you're going to spread it much more easily.
Yeah.
Sure, we can have some transmission even after vaccination, but we know that is much lower than if you're unvaccinated and get the infection. You go home and you're spreading it to your family members who might be older, who might have more risk factors, diabetic, hypertensive, obese, these are problems.
So everything is much lower. It's like you transmit less.
Yeah.
So you're saying a vaccinated person would have a less likely a chance to transmit it to someone else versus an unvaccinated person?
Absolutely. We do know, and let's state it as it is, that even if you're vaccinated, you could transmit if you become infected, right? What we do know is that period of transmission is far less than if you're unvaccinated. We also have reason to believe that you probably are not giving as much, transmitting as much infectious particles from one person to the next, so that the bulk of the infection that is spreading is still coming from the unvaccinated person rather than the vaccinated person. You see?
So we're transmitting less. Let me just get this. I'm in
let's
the
break
vax
it down,
category,
Break
right?
it down, let's break
So
it down.
vax, they transmit less. but they can get infection, but they have a less chance of getting infection. So everything is less, right?
That's right.
You protect yourself, less than that. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
So you're
it's
healthier.
it's risk benefit, and definitely everything that, if you're unvaccinated, everything is riskier, without doubt, and your chances of spreading to everybody else is greater.
In fact, your chance of your chance of also having swollen balls is also swollen testicles is also higher.
All right, right.
Everything is higher.
So Nikki.
If you're unvaxxed, everything is higher. Okay.
Right.
So in wrapping up this, the vax versus the unvax risk factors, would you say that, and I want to be careful with this one,
sure.
is that if you are unvaccinated, because there's a lot of people saying this,
Sure.
how much of a threat do you pose to a vaccinated person? Because what I found happening in society is that I go in a taxi and I hear somebody not vaccinated, they don't want them sit down next to me. What sort of threat do they pose to a vaccinated person?
Well, I have to tell you that I tend to ask people if they're vaccinated or not.
Right, you see?
Yeah.
Are you coming in my car?
But from a science perspective.
Well, again, it comes back really to the whole point. If you're unvaccinated, you probably have a very high viral load, you know, and so the amount of infectious organisms that you're likely to spread is going to be greater. The person who's vaccinated in the wrong environment, in closed environment, surrounded by all these thousands of people in the carnival, etc., in close proximity for long periods of time, and you also have a lot of unvaccinated. There's a lot of a virus in the air.
Yeah.
You will get infected. That increases your chance of breakthrough infection.
Right.
But the good thing is that you're probably going to have mild infection, as has been your experience. So really, yes, the unvaccinated person is a threat.
It's
A
higher
threat.
threat.
A higher
It's
threat.
a higher
A higher
Everything
threat.
is higher. Everything, I swear to you
Right,
guys, is higher.
It is
You're
higher.
unvaxxed, you're more of a threat.
Absolutely.
You
To
transmit
yourself
more.
and everybody else.
Right, and you also have a higher chance of infection. You get sicker. You'll end up in ICU more. I'm saying that I know, bro, totally. I'm in the zone that we're having a conversation. This seasons about conversations, but the data from all these professors is showing here what. Think about it. Get information, and afterwards go get your vaccine. Okay.
So you heard it from me. Ollie doesn't want to believe me because I'm not a doctor, so I bring the doctors here. But I mean, in reality, as we said, we want to bring the right information to your doorstep. To your couch where you're watching us, or you're at work, or wherever you may be looking at us from. We want to make sure that you get the right information. You didn't get it from Facebook or from WhatsApp or from whatever you may have got your source from. You get it directly from the professionals right here on Homefront. My name is Rome. We want to thank you very much, Prof, for joining us as usual. JP, this has been Homefront. Remember to go to pedcares.org and donate. I will take a sip of my tea before we leave. This has been Homefront. Yeah, my brother, I would have been like that too. They panic.